Diabetes Connections is brought to you by Animas Corporation, providing insulin delivery products for people living with diabetes and part of the One Touch family. And by Dexcom. Take control of your diabetes with the world's first continuous glucose monitoring system that sends glucose readings directly to your compatible smart device. Live life on your own terms with Dexcom. Hey, it's Stacy. This podcast is not intended as medical advice. You know that. I am not a doctor. If you have those kinds of questions, please contact your healthcare provider.
This is Diabetes Connections with Stacy Sims.
This week, some diabetes camps have been lucky enough to get a couple of special visitors this summer. American Idol finalist, singer-songwriter Crystal Bowersox, and Olympic skier Kris Freeman have been talking to kids about following their dreams while living with type 1.
For myself, what I really enjoy about going to the camps is trying to spread a positive message about diabetes. And that's really a passion of mine because the very first things I heard when I was diagnosed were negative.
Kris is hoping to make the Olympic ski team for the 5th time next year. And Crystal will share why she comes back to the Friends for Life conference every summer. Plus, we profiled Bike Beyond rider Jesse Levine, talking food, college, and advice he got very early on from his doctor.
He said, I'm your doctor here, but from here on out, you're your own doctor. If you want to be healthy, you have to take care of yourself. It was just like a big moment for an 11-year-old.
And as Bike Beyond nears the finish line in California, one young fan has a message for the team. I can't wait to play this for you. It all starts now on Diabetes Connections. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad you found us. I'm Stacy Sims. Really glad to have you along for another week. If you're new to the program, here on Diabetes Connections, we aim to educate and inspire about type 1 diabetes by sharing stories of connections from the movers and shakers in our community, the celebrities, the athletes, the speakers, and the bloggers. But even if you're not an Olympian or a rock star and you're just living day to day with type 1 diabetes, I want to hear from you and share your story. My son was diagnosed just before he turned 2. He is 12 and a half right now. It'll be 11 years for us in December. Jeez, hard to believe that. And I was a longtime radio host, a TV local anchor and reporter, and you put that all together and you get the podcast. We've been doing this now since the summer of 2015. And wherever you're listening, I always say, please tell somebody else about the show. That is the best way to get the word out. If you like it, please share it. We do have an app now for Android and for Apple. So if you're listening on your laptop or you're going through Facebook, it may be easier for you to just download the app and then you can take us wherever you go, walking the dog, listening in the car, all that good stuff. All right. So I love talking about camp. I mentioned we've got some special camp guests here on the show today. I'm a huge fan of diabetes camp, of all camps really. Camp is just so cool. I went to camp my entire childhood. Every summer, I went to camp starting at the age of 6. I was almost 7. My birthday's in the fall. And my older sister was going, and I insisted on going as well. And my parents were like, yeah, sure, if you want it, go ahead. And I went every summer until I was 15. And then I said to my mom, I was a CIT, counselor in training. And then I said, yeah, I don't think I want to go to camp this summer. And she said, well, you have a choice. Go to camp, get a job, because you're not sitting on the couch all summer long. So I actually did get a job. Do you remember typing class? I took typing class in high school and I got myself a job. I can continue dating the story even more because I answered an ad in my local penny saver, which was, you remember that? That was like a little book that came out maybe once a week or once a month and you just kind of flipped through it. It had all sorts of ads. Oh my goodness. But I was a secretary at my town hall. I kept that summer job and then after school, I kept that all the way, I think till my junior year of college. That was great. So anyway, sorry, got off the topic of camp there. But my whole family, big time camp family. My dad went, I went, my husband, my kids. So camp is where, and for diabetes, this is even more important, but camp to me is where you learn who you are without your parents. And that is just huge. I'm very close to my parents. We have a wonderful family, knock wood. But camp is a time to get away from the comfort of your home and that sheltered environment. Figure out who you are, who you want to be, how you want to take care of yourself. all that good stuff. You have more responsibility. It's just such a great environment where you really can grow up. I credit camp for a lot of who I am today. So I'm looking forward to talking to Crystal and Kris about their experiences at camp, obviously a little bit different from the campers. And of course, we're going to check in on Bike Beyond. Let me first tell you a little bit about one of our sponsors, about Animas. We put a lot of thought into choosing Benny's Animas One-Touch insulin pump 10 years ago. And just as much thought each time we decided to stay with Animas One-Touch. Our insurance has always covered a new pump every 4 years, so we've stayed with Animas One-Touch 3 times now, right? Well, the product is exactly what we want out of an insulin pump. Animas One-Touch offers a choice of pumps, so you can choose the one that suits your individual needs. Customer service is incredible, and Animas One-Touch pumps fit my son's very active lifestyle. To find out more, go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the Animas, part of the One-Touch family logo.
You're listening to Diabetes Connections with Stacy Sims.
As I am talking a lot about camp this week, it is also back to school time for a lot of kids. Definitely in the South, in parts of the West, they go back in mid-August. Rest of the country closer or after Labor Day. But there's a lot of really good back-to-school resources. I sent out in the newsletter last week. Are you signed up for the newsletter? I sent out information on an American Diabetes Association webinar that's actually happening August 10th. So as this episode comes out, you do have a couple of days to get in there. I will link up the information to this episode as well. That is their Safe at School webinar that they do every summer. Beyond Type 1 also has some terrific back-to-school resources. I should mention, too, that for preschools and for daycare, there is good information, I know, on the ADA Safe at School website, because that's a little different. And for college, on the other end of the spectrum, I highly recommend the College Diabetes Network. So all sorts of information, I will link it up in the episode. And you may notice with the episode links these days, if you're a longtime listener, they look a little different. I'm trying to make it easier for you to find what you need. So instead of the helpful links, which is a separate link at diabetes-connections.com, all of the links are now in the show notes, which you can find wherever you're listening. So the show notes are what they call the summary that you find on any podcast player. I believe on iTunes, you might have to say click for more or full episode notes, but all of the links should be there, certainly in the Diabetes Connection app itself for Android and Apple. All of the notes and the links are there. If you have any issues, just let me know. Hit me up on social media or at stacy@diabetes-connections.com. But the back-to-school information is really valuable, all 3 of those sources. If you've got any others, send them my way. I would love to hear from you. Quick word from Dexcom now, our other wonderful sponsor, and we have been dealing with type 1 diabetes, as I've said, for more than 10 years now. Benny was diagnosed in 2006, just before he turned 2. Now, I had heard about the teen years, like a lot of parents. I thought we'd be different. Well, here we are. Ha ha ha, karma. Love ya. Here comes some incredible physical changes and wild hormone swings. I can't imagine managing diabetes during this crazy time without the Dexcom continuous glucose monitoring system. We can react more quickly to highs and lows and adjust insulin doses with advice from our endocrinologist. I know the G5 Mobile is helping to improve Benny's A1C. CGM-based treatment requires finger sticks for calibration, may result in hypoglycemia if calibration not performed or symptoms expectations do not match CGM readings. For more information, go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the Dexcom logo. Earlier, I was talking about how much I love camp because of, really what it can give you mentally, right? That independence, that responsibility, that feeling of self-confidence. What I found, and I was not at all surprised by this, a couple of years ago, there was a great survey by the American Diabetes Association about diabetes. And it showed that kids who attended these camps found that it can increase their diabetes knowledge, self-confidence, diabetes management, and emotional well-being while enjoying traditional camp activities. Because most of these camps aren't kids sitting in a circle, taking out their meters and sharing about how they feel. It's, hiking, playing, swimming while diabetes is going on. According to the same survey, the number of campers with a clear understanding of diabetes management increased by 11% after attending a Diabetes Association camp, and the number of campers with the ability to manage their problems independently increased by 10%. So there's a lot of information. I'll link up this study as well at diabetes-connections.com and within the podcast apps as well. There are a lot of studies that talk about long-term health outcomes improving because of diabetes camp. And I really can see that. I see it in my own son. And I also see it in some of the adults I know who were lucky enough to go to camp or be staff. They have these text chains and these groups. I mean, these kids today with their texting and their chatting, but really they have a group where, and they've showed me, if they have a question, if they have a problem, if they're just feeling a way that they can't share with their regular friends or with their mom, these are 20-year-olds, they can text their friends from camp and get the support that they need. As you know, a couple of weeks ago, I was at the Friends for Life conference put on by children with diabetes. And while I was there, I learned about the Lilly Camp Care Package, which is not something you can send to your kid in the mail, although they might want to work on that. That sounds pretty cute. But the Lilly Camp Care Package is all about scholarships and education and speakers. And certainly they also send insulin and supplies to these camps. And these speakers include people like Crystal Bowersox, Nashville recording artist and Lilly Diabetes ambassador. She visited her hometown diabetes camp in Ohio. You may remember Crystal kind of came to the diabetes community attention and national attention. She was on American Idol in 2010, and she had to actually go to the hospital in the middle of the competition. It was a type 1 issue. It was reported as DKA, but she was able to come back and sing the next day. And she came in second. She was the runner-up that year in 2010. And she has continued to be very outspoken about type 1 diabetes. I caught up with her a couple of years ago before I was doing the podcast. I interviewed her for my blog, and she was just as gracious now as she was then. She has a new album out. So here's my conversation with Crystal Bowersox. So how are you?
I'm excellent.
Wonderful.
Yeah, here in Orlando for Friends for Life, which I think this is my 4th or 5th year now coming here. And it's always, I learn something new every single time.
Do you really?
I do. Yeah, this event has changed my life in positive ways for sure.
Well, tell me about that. Is it learning about more of your own management? Is it just seeing other people?
Well, I remember my first Friends for Life, there was a psychologist who specialized in children with type 1. When I was diagnosed, I had no idea that was even a thing. And she said something that has stuck with me to this day, that, your glucose reading is just a number. It's just information so that you can act accordingly. And my entire life up until that point, I had always internalized that, I have a high blood sugar. I must have done something. I am wrong. I am the high blood sugar. So I learned to separate those two things. And it's really helped me, get through any negative feelings that I might have in my diabetes management.
That's fantastic. When you're playing a concert here like last night and the kids are all dancing around, I was there watching, it was so much fun. What's going through your mind?
It's not my typical audience, but I just have to remind myself, this is all far beyond me. I just remember that it's not about me at all. In fact, it's about them for sure. Just to show them that their dreams are achievable and to also give them this moment of escape from their daily routine. They can just be kids and they can have fun. And that's really important.
And I assume it's kind of the same thing at summer camps when you go visit. Different setting. Mm-hmm. And some of those kids have not been away from home. What do you talk to them about? Do you perform and do you talk to the kids one-on-one? How does it work?
Sure. Well, I share my own personal story with them and talk about my time on American Idol. And some of them are too young to have even ever saw me on television or whatnot. But yeah, I'll share my diagnosis and I'll talk about my time on American Idol, and I'll sing a couple songs for them. And then I get all sorts of questions, what's it like being a rock star? and then sometimes I ask them questions, and I learn more, I think, from them than they do from me.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I'm curious too, kids who go to summer camp, as I was saying with Kris, a lot of times they have these milestones at camp. Do they like to share those with you? Do they ask you about your milestones?
Sometimes, yeah. And I know some of these kids are, like you said, away from home for the very first time. And I was a camper myself, so I remember what that felt like. It's a little scary at first, but these camps empower them to be more independent. And some of them are giving their very first injections or putting on their own devices for the very first time. And I think that the camaraderie of it, all of them being together and having a community and making friends that they'll hopefully keep, once they leave camp as well, all of these things are going to just stay with them for years.
So you have an 8-year-old.
I do, okay. An 8-year-old son.
How does your son react with your diabetes? I'm sure it's just part of your lives right now, but has it changed from when he was real little as he's gotten older and understood more?
Yes, he's at the age now where he is starting to understand more. I mean, he always has, and it makes me sad to think about or even share this story, but we've had to do drills. I'm a single mom. It's him and I at home. So I've had to talk to him. What do you do if you find mom unable to talk or help herself? And he knows what to do. And he's such a strong little man because of that. And this year he's here with me. And last night in the hotel room after we finished our activities for the day, we're cuddling in bed, and he says, "Mom, I want to have a lemonade stand and help find the cure." I know. I get verklempt right now thinking about it. But, and then even today, too, we're walking to one of the conference rooms, and he said, "I really hope they find a cure." And I said, "Well, maybe you can." And I watched his gears turn, so perhaps maybe he'll become one of the leading researchers and be a part of this amazing group of people,
It is a pretty amazing group of people.
Yeah.
How's music going for you? You have a new album.
I do. I released a new album June 16th. It's called Alive, which I'm very grateful to be. Every day I wake up, left foot down, I say thank, and right foot down, I say you to whatever powers that be. And I don't go a day without counting my blessings. And I've learned that counting my blessings more than my problems is really the way to get through all of this. So yeah, new record was recorded in Santa Fe, New Mexico after a couple weeks on the road, living in a van with my smelly bandmates. It's always a good time. Rock and roll. And we spent 3 or 4 days there in Santa Fe recording at the studio, the Kitchen Sink studio. Had an audience in studio. It's a live album. I think that's really where I thrive, performing. I need the audience. There's this energy that, I feed on, and I need them to give my best performance. So,
have you ever had a situation where you go low on stage or have concerns like that?
I have gone low on stage, actually. Typically before I go out on stage, I'm trying to be between 120 and 180. And sometimes there's maybe active insulin on board, and, I'll dip a little low, but there was this, I forget what city I was in, but there was a fellow type 1 in the audience who had a glucose packlet. I had juice side stage, but it was pretty cool actually to have a fan come up and give me that. And they later posted about it on Facebook, and that was neat.
That's probably amazing for them too.
Yeah,
look what I did.
It's cool. And after the show, then I signed the little thing. It's kind of all sorts of interesting things happen on the road.
Hey, it's funny. People outside the type 1 community would have no idea, right? But once you're in it, that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
That really is cool.
Yeah, and sometimes there'll be young people who have their management device, and they'll have me sign it. Sometimes kids, they want the backs of their cell phone cases signed. I still don't understand it, but it's cool to see pumps coming through, and I've signed a few.
That's great. That's all I needed. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
More information about Crystal and her new album and her life on the road in the show notes and at diabetes-connections.com. While I was in Orlando for the conference, I was also able to talk to another Lilly Diabetes ambassador, and that is Kris Freeman. Kris was diagnosed with type 1 at the age of 19, and it was just before the first Winter Olympics that he qualified for. And he was told, that's it, kiddo, sorry. But of course, he would not accept that. And he has now competed in 4 Olympics. He spoke a lot at Friends for Life about what's next for him, and you'll hear him speak about that as well. He hopes to qualify for the 5th Olympics for him coming up. And he also took some questions from the audience, which he alludes to in the interview. We talk about that a little bit. One of the conference presentations, he took some questions. Along with Crystal, Kris has been visiting kids at summer camp, and he seems to get a kick out of that. So here is my talk with Olympian Kris Freeman. So how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. I'm fine. When you were speaking this morning at the breakfast and answering those questions, it was great to get an update. Can you share with my listeners what's up with you? What's next?
Well, right now I am in training for what will hopefully be my 5th Olympics in South Korea this February. I'm also about to start my, 11th year, 12th year of doing summer camps on behalf of Eli Lilly, so I'm pretty excited to do that as well.
Okay, so I have a son with type 1 who's met you at summer camp, and I have a cousin with type 1 who's met you at summer camp. They are always so excited to see you, and, people who take the time to talk about their lives. What's it like for you to go to those camps?
It's always inspiring. It's always fun to see young people with diabetes getting together in a sense of community and watching them, work towards being more independent and more at one with themselves. But for myself, what I really enjoy about going to the camps is trying to spread a positive message about diabetes. And that's really a passion of mine because the very first things I heard when I was diagnosed were negative. So I think it's very important to maintain a bit of optimism, especially in younger people with diabetes.
Well, tell us about that, because looking at you, it's hard to believe that someone told you that you couldn't do something with type 1 diabetes. It obviously hasn't held you back. But when you were diagnosed, what was said to you?
I was told that no one had ever competed in the Olympics in an endurance sport before, that, medicine wasn't there, that there wasn't a way to do it. They didn't tell me I had to quit skiing, but that going to the Olympics wasn't going to happen. And I think that the doctor I saw wasn't ill-intentioned. He was just behind the times. He was behind where the innovation had come in diabetes treatment. And what I like now is when I first told that story 12 years ago at the first camps, a lot of the kids nodded in recognition of what was being said. And now I say it, and the kids look at me dumbfounded, and they said, your doctor would tell you can't do something? And so I think that's a really positive direction that we're going in.
I was going to ask you about that because it has changed even in the 10 years since my son was diagnosed. I feel like a lot of kids don't necessarily get that message. And I was going to say, so what do they say to you? Are they like, wow, how crazy was your doctor? Or what are you thinking?
Yeah, reactions like that. And like I said, it's just really good to see that a lot of the negative thoughts and old ways with diabetes are going away.
All right. So when you go to camp, do you eat the camp food?
I eat the camp food sometimes.
I went to summer camp for a very long time, so I can ask that. Have you had any funny experiences with kids there in terms of, a 7-year-old wanting to show you themselves doing their own shots, or kids talking about milestones for themselves that they're excited to tell you about?
For sure. A lot of the times the kids are very proud of themselves the first time that they check their own glucose or they give themselves their own first insulin shot. Those things are huge steps. And a lot of young diabetics do that for the first time at camp, and I think that's why there's such a good thing to have.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about you. You had some funny questions this morning that you went through, including about, is the snow the same all over the world, which I thought was cute. But what about some of your experiences with insulin? And, you're in a lot of cold climates. Can you share how you manage?
Well, the delivery device I use sits right on my skin. And so it keeps the insulin warm. There's no extraneous tubing, so it goes directly into the skin, and my body heat keeps it warm, even though I'm just wearing a skin suit when I'm racing. So that's how I could keep the insulin warm. When I'm traveling, I would generally keep it in the fridge for the most part, or keep it in a backpack in a heated room when I'm actually racing in case, I need it for something.
Have you ever had it frozen on you?
I've had it freezing on me once in a very cheap hotel refrigerator. You know, the ones that's kind of like the dual thing. Yeah, that was really unfortunate.
Not too much fun. You wear it on your chest a lot of the time, right?
I do.
Is it comfortable? I don't want to turn this into an omni-commercial, but that astounds me because I always thought you had to have a little bit more fat or a different area. It looks like it hurts. Does it hurt?
If it hurt, I wouldn't wear it there. Okay. I am very lean for my sport, and so you want to put your pod on wherever it is wherever there's subcutaneous fat, and there's about the same amount on my chest as there is on my stomach. So I thought about where it would be most convenient, and I put it there, and it doesn't hurt. I also wear it on my upper back.
Have you had kids kind of model that too? Try it? Like that's a place that a lot of kids wouldn't try.
I actually had a really cute photo forwarded to me on Facebook. I actually shared it on my page of a 10-year-old who tried it on his chest.
That's very cool. Well, you need to rotate those sites.
You do.
If you can get them to go around. You've got summer and then training, I assume. Are there events coming up that the kids can cheer you on in that we should look for?
I'm going to be doing a triathlon in September called the Josh Billings Runaground, and it's a 25-mile road bike followed by a 5-mile kayak around a lake, and then a 10-kilometer run.
Have you ever done something like that?
I did it 2 years ago, and I won, so I'm hoping to go back and repeat on that. And I'll do a couple other summer races, but for the most part, it's focusing in on my ski training and focusing in on my most important races for that, which the first trials race I have is December 3rd. That's going to be in West Yellowstone, Montana, and then the next week I'll be in Silver Star, British Columbia. And then the final 2 qualifying races are in Anchorage, Alaska in early January.
Well, we'll be cheering you on. Wonderful.
Thank you.
More information about Kris at diabetes-connections.com and in the show notes. Now, before I go any further, have you seen this picture of Kris with the Omnipod on his chest that I was talking about? I'm going to put that out on Facebook when I put the episode up because he was so nonchalant. I wouldn't put it there if it hurt. Well, I know, but it looks crazy to me. I've never seen anybody else wear it there. And that picture is striking. Can I say that? It's quite an interesting picture. So I'll put it out there and you can judge for yourself if I should have asked that question. I thought that was pretty funny. I'll also link up information about Lilly Camp Care Package and more information about what they do for campers across the country. But right now, that music means it is time to talk about Team Bike Beyond. It is hard to believe, but these folks are almost done with their 10-week adventure. We've been following them all summer long as 20 people with type 1 diabetes go from New York City to San Francisco. They are unbelievable, and it's been really fun to follow them along. So along the way, they've had these pop-up parties, they've met kids, they've stopped at diabetes camps, and they are definitely making an impact. A video caught my eye. I want to share this with you. This is so cute. You may remember Inspired by Isabella. We had the Dooleys, Isabella's parents, Greg and Christina, on the show previously, and they are big supporters of Bike Beyond. As part of their local library summer reading program, the kids had some challenges to complete each week. So this week they needed to write about a champion. They say they didn't prompt Isabella to write any of this or to read any of it. And once they found out what she was writing about, they asked her to share. So here is Issa's report on her heroes at Bike Beyond.
For my library reading program, I have to write about champions. My champions are Bike Beyond. All the bike riders have type 1 diabetes. There's 20 bike riders. They're riding bikes from New York to Nashville to Denver to San Francisco from June 2nd to August 11th. Go Bike Beyond. Good luck.
Greg and Christina, thank you so much for letting me share that and sending that video in. So great. I just love it. Okay, this is our last profile of a rider because next week we're going to be wrapping this puppy up. The bike ride is set to be completed and we will be doing a report on how it all went. I didn't get a chance to talk to all of the bikers. As you know, as you've gone through this, these were just a few people that volunteered to talk to me as they set out on this life-changing event. This week, I'm talking to Jesse Levine. He is one of the younger riders on the trip. He's 22. He just graduated from college, and he is fascinated, as you'll hear, by how we react, how we metabolize food. We do a deep dive into how he has changed his diet over the years. Quick disclaimer, I am not a doctor nor a nutritionist, and while Jesse has a degree in human biology, he is not giving medical advice here either. He was diagnosed when he was 11 years old, and here is my interview with Jesse. Jesse, I'm glad you could make some time for me. I know we're getting ready here as the ride is beginning to kick off. How are you? What are you thinking in these last couple of days?
Stacey, thank you for having me talk about myself. I'm doing well. I got to New York a week before the ride starts. As soon as I got to New York, to LaGuardia Airport, it started to set in as being very real. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I'm about to bike across the country. And I've been preparing for it mentally and physically for quite some time now. But as soon as I made that transition to New York, it just became extremely real. So here I am, just doing a lot of things in preparation. And I'm really looking forward to meeting the whole team. I'm so excited to meet the whole team and just get on my bike. I'm ready to get on my bike at this point.
Have you not been able to ride around where you're staying right now?
No, I think you would maybe have to go to New York. It just feels pretty dangerous.
Why did you decide to do this?
Ride a bicycle across the country?
Yeah.
It's a good question. I got a bicycle in college, and my roommate had done a trip that I actually just found out was cross country. And he got me into looking at touring bikes. And so I actually got a touring bike in college to haul my stuff around and just commute across campus. And then one fall break, I rode my bike from Los Angeles to San Diego. And that was a huge rush. Just went with a few friends. We took all of our stuff. We supported ourselves. And that was awesome. And there was a lot of preparation for my diabetes. And I was vegan at the time. So it was definitely a lot of management at the time. But that really kind of put a bug in my skin of wanting to ride across the country. And I'm actually about to launch my personal website, and I've quoted myself on it. The quote is, "One day I'm going to ride across the country on a bicycle." I don't know. I just graduated college, so it just seems like the perfect thing to do.
Yeah, the timing's good. That's great.
Yeah, timing is perfect.
So you were diagnosed as a kid. You were 11 years old. Mm-hmm. What do you remember about that time, and what do you most remember changing?
So I was diagnosed January 23rd, 2006. It was like a few days before the science fair. Somehow I think the first time I saw my friends again after I was diagnosed was at the science fair. And they were like, "We heard you just got diabetes." And I was like, "Yep." But the day that I was diagnosed, I actually went to the doctor with my mom. And maybe my sister too. That part's a little fuzzy, but some parts I remember extremely distinctly, and I actually wrote my college application essay about this, was getting told by the doctor that my blood sugar was in the 530s, and that I had ketones in my urine, and she said that I had type 1 diabetes. And there was a girl in my class who had type 1 diabetes, so I knew a little bit about it, and I was just so scared, and I was on my mom's face, and I just broke down into tears. Yeah. And then my mom called my dad. My dad came to the doctor's office. And the part I remember most distinctly is I couldn't really see that much because I was crying so hard. But my dad put me into the backseat of his car, and he strapped me into the belt buckle, and then the door slammed, and I just heard his footsteps walking around the side of the car. And that moment was just wow, my life is going to be really different from here on out. I don't think I thought that at the time, but just that's the memory that I have visualized in my head about that experience. And then I actually went to the hospital, and I saw my pediatrician, who was not there at the time. And she came up to me. We were in the waiting area. And she's like, "What are you doing? I was gone for a little bit, and you got diabetes." So she put a little humor into it, which was nice. I don't think I responded very well or very eloquently. But that being said, I went through like the normal thing. I like put through an IV drip, got some insulin, got my ketones down. They gave me like the classic school of thought is like, you can eat whatever you want as long as you take insulin for it. So they had a McDonald's in the area, and I was like, I want a spicy, crispy chicken sandwich, which was like my go-to at the time with extra mayonnaise. And they brought it to me, and they were like, yeah, you can eat it. You can eat anything you want. You're still a normal kid. And I was like, okay. So that was it. And then met my endocrinologist and had a very real talk with him. And one of the things that's really stuck with me to this day is that he said, I'm your doctor here, but from here on out, you're your own doctor. If you want to be healthy, you have to take care of yourself. It was just like a big moment for an 11-year-old. And and the crash course of my parents, my mom and dad were super supportive. And I remember giving my first shot at the time. I was pretty hesitant to do it, but they definitely pushed me to just do it, because I was like, this is your life now, and you have to get used to it. And there was definitely times when my parents, gave me shots, but I tried to do it as much as I could. I think I answered past your question. But,
No, that was great. That was great. So do you remember the decision you made to go from the McDonald's spicy chicken sandwich with extra mayo to vegan?
Yeah, I do. There's actually one more part that I want to talk about.
Of course, go ahead. I'll come back to that
point. So 11 to like 13, I think I was just like the worst kid ever. Like my brother and sister hated me because I was just so annoying, and I think I was like pretty spiteful of my diabetes.
Oh.
And my mom, when I was first diagnosed, she always told me, she was like, I wish it was me, not you. And that was like a pretty hard thing to hear as a son, because it's like, of course, like I wish I didn't have this either, but like I don't want you to have it either, Mom.
Right.
Now I have it, like I'm getting used to it, like counting carbs. It's like kind of becoming, wasn't really second nature at the time, but it was becoming so. But there was one moment, I went to this school in 7th grade that I'd been with the same kids since kindergarten. And I think it was maybe a little bit of a toxic environment to like be around the same people. And I don't think I really expanded much as a person up until that point. And the teachers that I had weren't super supportive. I think that's what made it like kind of toxic, but it was just a brat. And one day my brother, you can edit this out if you want, my brother came up to me one day and he was like, dude, you gotta stop being such a dick to Mom. And I remember that moment so clearly, because it just really snapped me into place. I was like, you're right. It's like Mom is doing nothing but supporting me and helping me out and just loving me unconditionally. And here I am just being mean to her. And after that, there was like a culmination of things, but I switched schools. I went to a public school, which really expanded my horizon to places that I would never have gotten to if I were in the same place. And then from that point on, I just kind of like started to take care of myself. And I was like, just always checking my blood sugar like 6 to 10 times a day, just because I was like, I think my endocrinologist instilled good habits in me. So that one moment, and I recently told my brother about that moment. I was like, dude, you really changed my life with that one sentence. And he thought it was so interesting that I still remember that. But that was definitely a crucial moment.
Does your mom know about that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She does.
So let me ask that McDonald's question then. How'd you get to be vegan?
Sophomore year of college was a pretty tough time for me. Up until then, I was kind of eating a lot of things in the dining halls. So just stack my plate with pizza, and I would eat cookies and take a bunch of cookies to go. And my friend's parents came to visit from Houston, and we had this chain gas station called Buc-ee's. Mm-hmm. And Buc-ee's is known for their oversized portions. Even the establishment is oversized, but I guess everything is bigger in Texas. So they brought me this 54-ounce jug. Except for water, what the hell else do you need to drink 54 ounces of? Yeah. And here I am in the dining hall filling up with orange cream soda.
Really?
It was like, yeah. So I took it and I was like, oh, this is perfect for Lowe's. I filled it up all the way and I put it in my fridge. But then I would just kind of like sip on it, like occasionally.
I reacted like that because I knew you. I mean, I was hoping you took it for Lowe's, but that happens to us all the time. Not that big a jug, but he'll take something little. Oh yeah, and then all of a sudden you turn around and it's half of it's gone. I don't know what happened to that Gatorade.
Right. Yeah, and that happened a few times. I was like, where did all those 54 ounces go? So eventually I stopped filling that up. but it happened a few times. Anyway, the next semester I came back and I was like kind of not, I was a little bit disenchanted with Pittsburgh College at the time. I was in this long distance relationship with this girl in Memphis, and it was just like, wasn't really present in my own environment. At the time I wanted to transfer to go to Berklee College of Music. So I was like playing guitar in my room all the time and not really being a student at Pittsburgh. And then a certain moment occurred and I just like realized I was like, I'm not doing very well right now. I have to just kind of take my losses. And so I withdrew myself the next morning, went to the registrar's office and signed some forms. And then I went home the next week. I took that semester off. So that was like mid-semester, just like took a medical withdrawal and went home, got a new endocrinologist, who's my current one, who is the man. And one of the reasons that I took the time off because my blood sugars were just not doing very well. So I had to, kind of dial in on that. So I started looking around, reading some stuff, and I found this book called The China Study. This was after I spent some time in Houston, and I was working in a restaurant for a little bit, and then I went to Boston. And when I was in Boston, I don't remember how I found this book. Oh, yes, I do. I was having brunch with my uncle, my great uncle. My great uncle becomes fervently devoted to ideas. And I remember sitting with him at a meal, and he was telling me about this book called The China Study. And he was like, this book, with diet, you can cure cancer. And I was so intrigued that I just bought it, and I started reading it. And the first 10 pages, I was like, okay, I'm turning vegan, because it said that there was a study with mice and with casein, and if you eat casein is like the on and off switch for cancer in mice. And so I was like, okay, definitely going to turn off cancer in my body. So I just went cold turkey vegan. And at the time, I also was newly on a CGM. So I was seeing what it did to my blood sugars, and it was pretty good. I was just eating vegetables mostly, and it didn't really require much insulin. I was reducing my insulin intake by a lot. One thing I did notice is that I would have these really quick spikes and then really quick come downs because I wasn't really intaking that much fat. So it was just the sugar didn't really have anything to stabilize on. So I did that for 6 months, from I think June 25th to November 2nd of that year. The funniest dates that I remember are these diets that I go on. But I loved the lifestyle. But once I got back to school, I re-enrolled in the fall, and it was quite difficult to maintain that lifestyle in the dining halls because they did have really good vegan options, but a lot of the, you take away the fat and the flavor and you got to put back more sugar. So my blood sugars were definitely taking that hit.
Are you still vegan?
Nope, I'm not. On November 2nd, my endocrinologist in Houston is a huge proponent of the low-carb, high-fat diet. Mm-hmm. And he told me about it, and I was like, I'm doing pretty well on this vegan diet. I'm going to keep going, see what happens. And then I finally decided to try it. So the next day for that dinner, I was pretty upset with my blood sugars because they've been really high for couldn't really control them for a little bit. The next day I went to the dining hall. I got a few pieces of pizza, scraped off all the cheese, melted into a bowl, put some spinach, put some butter, put some chicken, and then I microwaved it and I mixed it all up, and then I ate that for dinner. So it was a really big switch.
I was just thinking, with the bike ride, your diet is important, mm-hmm. and, having energy to do that. Was that a concern too this year as you were training?
Absolutely. That was the thing that was most on my mind, is how I'm going to feel for this ride, how I'm going to manage my blood sugars. And once I did low carb, high fat, really there's no turning back for me. That was the key towards good blood sugars. Mm. And I'd really seen the light. You see the prairie and you see the horizon, it's there. That's what low carb, high fat was for me. Just eating these foods and taking the management out of my diabetes, basically. With the vegan diet, my blood sugars were pretty good, and I had a pretty similar average blood sugar and standard deviation, but actually the standard deviation was different. Average blood sugar was the same, but with the vegan diet, it required a lot more management. So I was always looking at my blood sugar because it was these short little spikes and short little drops. So with low carb, high fat, another time I was trying to get into ketosis, so I was doing 80% of my diet was fat, and my blood sugars were just a flat line the whole time, and it was just amazing. So I did that for 2 months, and then I got some cholesterol test back that scared me a little bit. Yeah. There's actually a lot more research going to now of whether or not cholesterol is actually an indicator for heart risk, and that's a whole separate discussion. But at any rate, I was a little bit deterred, and I just kind of like use all of the principles from all the diets that I had been on. So I was like eating vegetables and eating, just kind of taking out all like most of the carbs from my diet that were processed, but not really following anything strictly. I call it like my diet tool belt, which is like try all these diets and just kind of taking the best things from each one.
Yeah.
And also with that, like even if I'm not on a diet and I'm like eating a slice of pizza again, I know how to go about it by like pre-bolusing and just all these different techniques with insulin that I've learned throughout the years. Feeling training for this bike ride was like definitely got to do low carb fat. I'm actually going to attempt to go into ketosis for the bike ride. I just ordered a bunch of ketone blood test strips so I can do it in a safe way and titrate my body to fat, see what happens. Pretty optimistic about it, but I wish I had done it earlier.
Okay, so why would you want to do that? Explain to us what that means and why you'd like to do that.
So with that, your body is fueling itself off of your fat stores. And your fat stores have way more energy per gram than carbohydrates do, 9 versus 4. And you also have this giant tank of calories from fat, almost like 40,000 than you do opposed to your energy tank from glycogen, which you get from the carbohydrates, which is about 2,000 in the average person. So just thinking of the bike ride, there's like so many intricacies and like fueling, and we're going to be doing this for multiple days at a time. So if you're going on one long endurance event for one day, you can go off your body's own fat stores, but for multiple days, you need to keep replenishing your glycogen stores, and you need to make sure your liver and your muscle stores are up to balance. So by going to ketosis, you prevent your body from bonking. You can just like keep going, basically. And you can take way less carbs, you can take way less insulin. Ideally, I mean, I haven't fully been in ketosis. Who knows if I'll get there? I'm going to keep everyone updated on my blog, justforthemind.com. But we'll see. We've also, so a few crucial things that we've got for nutrition are also UCAN and No Foods.
Right.
And those are some pretty amazing products. So UCAN is this new type of carbohydrate that it's basically just a giant molecule. It's just cornstarch and water. And normal glucose is 180 grams per mole, and this is 500,000 to 700,000 grams per mole. So it just absorbs super slowly in your body, but it absorbs into glucose. So by the slow absorption, it doesn't secrete an insulin response. Me, I don't even have insulin in my body, so it doesn't really matter, but I don't have to take insulin. And what insulin does is, aside from allowing glucose into your blood cells, is it stops your body from like utilizing its fat stores. So by doing that, you are able to fuel yourself off of your fat, and also you have the sustained energy for a long period of time. Like people run marathons just fueling with UCAN.
Wow. All right, we have gotten way down a road of food, which is, I know it's very interesting, but I want to bring you back. When you think about the bike ride,
is my favorite topic.
I can tell. What was your major in college?
Human biology.
Okay. All right. So you're
prompted by my dad.
Well educated here. But when you think about the bike ride, I mean, obviously the food, this is very important, but when you think about the ride itself, what are you most excited about? Is there anything that really stands out to you?
I think being around a bunch of people who have diabetes is what really excites me. I think because for the longest time I was not really into sport, but I recently decided that it's an incredibly important thing to have emotional support and just have people who know what you're going through. And so doing this bike ride with 19 other people who are living with type 1 diabetes, I think it's just like, I couldn't really ask for any better way to do this bike ride. I can't really imagine doing this bike ride with as being the only person with type 1 diabetes, because you're just thinking about so many more things than everyone else. So I think that's my answer, yeah.
Before I let you go, so you just graduated from college. I mean, this is what you're doing right now. Do you have any plans yet?
Yeah.
I mean, any goals? I'm not going to make you plan out your life, but, you know, when the bike ride ends, are you looking for work? Are you going to continue with school?
So there's a few options. Like I said, the road is a little bit open at this point, but potentially going to get a job. Not sure where or what, but I'm also, my last semester of college, I took a class called Computer Programming for Chemists with my professor, Maduka Agba. In that class, I created a prototype of a diabetes education tool that I'm looking to make into an app. So I'm going to try and see what happens with that, further develop it and put it into an app form, and then hopefully it's for kids and newly diagnosed people with diabetes. So I think you'll be seeing more of that on the road.
Oh, great. Well, let us know. I'd love to talk to you again. You can tell us what it's all about, and we can help you launch it.
Cool. That would be super awesome, Stacey.
Excellent. Well, thanks for spending some time with me. I appreciate it, and I can't wait to catch up with you guys on the road.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be the adventure of a lifetime, to say the least.
You can donate to Jesse's Bike Beyond campaign. All the riders are raising money for the good stuff that Beyond Type 1 does. So I will link up Jesse's page as well. You can see a lot more about him. He's been blogging about the trip. And once again, we did that deep dive into food and ketosis. And please, 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 before you change your diet, with diabetes or without, talk to your doctor. That's some pretty serious stuff. And I certainly don't feel qualified to give advice on how anybody else should be eating, especially if you're trying to do something as athletic as Jesse is doing. You definitely want to make sure that you've got a handle on it and you've got a healthcare professional involved. So go ahead and please consult with somebody who is an expert before you make a big change like that. But it was really interesting to talk about. It's always fascinating. Listen, I've been doing this podcast since 2015. I've been interviewing people since I was 16 years old. It's amazing to me. I always learn something new. People are so passionate about what they do. This is the greatest thing in the world. I love doing this show. I'm so lucky. Thank you so much for joining me for another week. We have so much good stuff coming up. Bike Beyond is about to wrap up, and we are going to bring you the big finish. So please stay tuned for that. I have a new segment I'm going to be debuting in the next month. We're calling it Shop Talk. We are going to be hearing from lots of different companies that make stuff and want to help our community. These are not commercials. This will be a fun segment to bring you some information about people that you may not otherwise have heard about. I'm really looking forward to that. And I've got some more fun stuff on the horizon. But again, all the information will be on any podcast app for this week. So if you listen on Apple Podcast Player, on Stitcher or Google Play or the Diabetes Connection app for Apple or for Android, it will be there. The only place it's hard to get the links to show up, Facebook and Twitter. So if you listen to the show through social media that way, that's great. But if you then want to learn more, please come on back to diabetes-connections.com. And as always, let me know what you think. If you've listened to this point in the show, you've got to have an opinion. Let me know. Stacey at diabetes-connections.com. And that's STACEY at diabetes-connections.com. I so appreciate you spending so much time with me. I'm Stacey Sims, and I'll see you back here next week.
Diabetes Connections is a production of Stacey Sims Media. All rights reserved, all wrongs avenged.